everybody, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so today I'm going to have a chat to you about the final installment in the Wilson tweeter and resistor replacement video series that I've been doing. This one is going to talk about essentially my journey through that process. We're going to go into costings, so we're going to talk about the Wilson costings and then what the whole setup / improvement to my Wilsons cost me doing it the way I did it. So we'll just talk generally about that whole process and then also what I'm hearing in the room now that everything is done and settled down and back in here. So we'll start with the costings because it's a pretty important part of it. So to set this up, I contacted Wilson directly from here in Australia. They then put me onto their dealer network and I spoke to one of the dealers that are here in Australia. So the prices that I'm quoting you are the recommended retail prices or the MSRP prices for these components. So with the Wilson tweeter, from what I understand, the tweeter can only be bought as a complete unit, a drive unit, not as separate parts. So I actually blew up a voice coil / the diaphragm in the Wilson tweeter, and to replace that, I was offered a replacement tweeter driver, so the complete unit, and those units cost $1,295. That is per tweeter, and that is in Australian dollars. By the time we get them over from the States and what have you, that's obviously things are going to be dearer outside of America. If you're watching this there, obviously pricing will be substantially different, I would imagine. But that is the price quoted to me for each tweeter. Now, at the same time, and rightly so, I was advised to change the resistors. As we just don't know how long these resistors have been in these speakers behind me. And I would have done that anyway. Four resistors per speaker unit. Obviously they run 2 in parallel for the mid-range and 2 in parallel for the tweeter. So we'd need, essentially 8 resistors all up to do a resistor change. So for per speaker, the price to do the 4 resistors was 300 Australian dollars. So obviously we would be timing that by 2 because we're doing both speakers. So that would be $600. So the total costing to go through the dealer and to have the as at their recommended retail price, that must be stressed here. So all up to do both the tweeter drivers and to do the 8 resistors, the 4 for each speaker, so a full resistor change, we'd be looking at 3,190 Australian dollars. So that was my pricing through the dealer. And then we can talk. So obviously at that point I thought to myself, well, I wonder if there are better resistors out there. Number one, that was one of the first questions that popped into my mind, knowing full well that the Wilson resistors are of quite high quality. They really are very high quality resistors. But the question popped into my head, could there be a potentially an upgrade pathway in that regard? So I reached out to John of OAD Ultra Fidelity, and John suggested that if we went for a Visray metal foil resistor, they are the best resistors on the planet. They, in fact, NASA use them in the space program because of their such tight tolerances, and they just don't change their values in any way, shape or form. They are just the gold standard as far as resistors go. Now, these don't come cheap either, obviously, but I was very keen to investigate that pathway. So we went down that path, obviously, and I bought those resistors, as you know. They needed some modification to go into the back of the speakers, but again, there's a set out video in the last video explaining exactly how to do that. So obviously if you intend to go down that path, pause, do that step, play again, and you should be able to work your way through it. I gave a lot of detail there, and that was a rather long video. And the reason for that was I just wanted to make it really, really step by step understandable, so that there was no confusion about what you needed to do to achieve that outcome. So apologies if it was a little too long, but I did really want to hammer home the exact process that I went through, obviously, and that was ×2 for each speaker. So after finding out that there were better resistors, I then went about ordering those. And then I spoke to another friend of mine who put me on to a fellow who said that he thought that ScanSpeak did a tweeter diaphragm for that model tweeter. So I reached out to Mattersound in the States, and surely they do a tweeter diaphragm for that ScanSpeak tweeter. So the differences, and there were differences. So my thinking around that went like this. I thought, well, and John of OED Ultra Fidelity said to me, we can make anything work essentially at a later point if these tweeter diaphragms are going to work. So I spoke to Mattersound. They said to me, yes, they are identical. They go straight in the neodymium magnet array that is in the back of the tweeter drive unit. They fit in perfectly. There's no other way they can go. As you saw in the videos, they seat exactly perfectly. So the only difference there was, of course, is that the ScanSpeak voice coil is a 4 ohm resistance. The Wilson tweeter is an 8 ohm resistance. So to confirm all of this, I took the Wilson blown up diaphragm out, and I counted the amount of windings on the former, which is the part of the voice coil that goes in and out of the magnet array. And there were 15 windings on the voice coil. When I got the ScanSpeak 4 ohm tweeter diaphragms here from the States, I counted those, and there were 10 windings on that. So there was a difference of 5 extra windings on the 8 ohm, which would make sense. So that all panned out. I just wanted to confirm that that was the case, and sure enough, it was. And so we obviously, the first thing I wanted to do was put the original, take the blown up diaphragm out of the Wilson tweeter and put the ScanSpeak one in. So we did that, and then of course on the series you saw me measure between the two, and we could, in room measurements, we could not see any, I certainly could not hear any difference whatsoever between having a 4 ohm tweeter diaphragm in one and an 8 ohm in the other one. It was inaudible in this room. At the in-room measurements confirmed that fact, that we saw that we put one over the other and they were literally identical. So that confirmed nothing wrong with my ears. And at the end of the day, it's about how this sounds. If this sounds fine, then as far as I'm concerned, there's no problem. There'll be purists out there, I understand that, Wilson purists, that will say, well, you've done something different, that's not a Wilson anymore, or whatever they might think. That's fine, each to their own. I wanted to try this. I can very easily go out and buy another a set of tweeters. It wasn't that I couldn't afford to do it. I just wanted to try something different. And I thought it might be really good television for you guys to watch, me doing this process. So there was a few motivations around trying to do it. Plus, I like to rethink things. I'm an engineer. My engineering brain is always in gear. I'm always thinking of, how can I improve something? How can I, make it better if at all possible? So that being the case, I ordered and received the two 4 ohm diaphragms. I put them in the speakers, and I heard an improvement. Now, the improvement that I heard, I think, comes down to the fact that it's a new part. So a new voice coil, a new part in the tweeter motor drive, and it sounded, I heard just more ease. It just sounded more air in the higher frequencies. So I heard nothing in regards to anything that was offensive to my ears. I believed it sounded, after everything settled in, I believed it sounded better than it did before. Now, I'm not talking about a quantum leap here. It was only a very small difference, but to me, it sounded like it was just airier and just a nicer sound overall. When I put the resistors in, I definitely heard another step up. Now, again, it wasn't major. Well, I need to make this clear. We're only talking about very small incremental steps, but it wasn't going the wrong way. It was heading in the right direction. I was just hearing an ease in the mid-range, an ease in the upper frequency, and those were the areas that would be affected by those resistors. And my speaker system now sounds better than it ever has while I've owned them. So I'm more than impressed. I couldn't be happier. So that was that process going through. So the costings to do what I've done work like this. So for the 2 4-ohm ScanSpeak tweeter diaphragms, landed here in Australia from Mattersound, was $280.84. So that's shipping from America to here plus the 2 tweeter diaphragms. It's $280.84. So then we came down to the resistors. Now, obviously, going to these Visray metal foil resistors, they're not cheap. So that was always going to be a cost, but one I was prepared to go after. As it turned out, it was still cheaper than the Wilson resistors. So for a total of 6 resistors, because we only needed one resistor for each of the I believe the mid-range. Always get those two confused, and 2 for the tweeter, which you saw me modifying in the video, the last video, which is not hard to do, and at the end of the day, I was prepared to go down that path and enjoy that journey, and it was enjoyable. So all up for the 6 resistors, the cost to me landed here was $398.90. So I've gone to a higher resistor quality, and it cost me obviously a couple of $100 less than what it would have done to put the Wilson resistors back in. So my total outlay in costings to do what I've done came to $678.74. So you can see between $679 and $3,190, I saved a lot of money. So, and I have a better product at the end of it. I believe these speakers sound better now than they've ever sounded while I've owned them. I could not be happier with the outcome and the result. I hope this video series showed you that there is always another way of thinking about things. I didn't need to know anyone super special in the industry to get the information I got. I did some research, and it was easily found on the internet. I also had people that pushed me in the right direction about where to go. That being said, it was still very much something, all of which could be investigated online by just typing in questions on the internet, and you would find the answers. So I hope you've enjoyed this series. I hope it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed bringing this series to you. There is other ways of doing things. There's ways of thinking about around instead of going one way. Unfortunately, in this industry, audiophiles get ripped off more often than not. We just assume that because it's good, it's got to cost a lot. Now, there's a price metric in relation to the quality that you get, but there's also a lot of meat on the bone, let's just say. There's a lot of wriggle room around prices versus what something actually costs to produce. And there's more involved in it than that. I understand that. There's marketing, there's R&D, there's shipping, there's a lot of quantum that make up the final price. But there's also a heck of a lot of profit in this kind of gear, the higher end of the market. So there's obviously, I've found a way to do this at a considerably cheaper price. It literally is, it is a fraction of the cost. and I've improved my speaker system by doing it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed bringing it to you, certainly. Please give it a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing. I appreciate all of your help with the acknowledgement for the channel, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I really want to build the numbers up here and bring more of this stuff to you. And if I've got a channel that can't be ignored, I can bring all the really amazing components into the room and bring them all to you. So until we talk again, see you soon. Bye.